Okay, it is 4:02, and since we
Supervisor Guild, we can't hear you. I don't know if you went on a mute there for a moment.
usually am. I want to make sure I can be heard.
You came back now. We can hear you now.
Okay. If I do cut out again, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll move forward. So item number 2 is public comment. Do we have anyone that is registered?
Supervisor Guild, we don't have anyone that's
Right.
registered here. You are cutting in and out a little bit with respect to your reception.
Okay, let me try something here quick. Okay, is working any better for sound on that end?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Again, let me know if I need to make another adjustment. So I did not have anyone listed for public comment either, and I don't show anyone that is called in that would be. So we're going to move forward to item 3, approval of the April 1st, 2021 Extension Education Economic Development. Actions to the minutes. We have a motion to approve by Supervisor in the room, and is there a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. One last call for any changes to the minutes as presented. All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the April 1st minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 4 this month, policy issues, we do not have any. And item 5, operational functions, we also do not have any. So we will move right into item 6 for our educational presentations and outcome monitoring reports. 6A, reports from our committee-affiliated departments and organizations. The first organization or department is Marathon County Public Library. We do have a written summary that was provided in the packet, and I see Director Illick is on the line, so I will ask Director Illick to provide additional context now.
Thank you, Chair Guild. Good afternoon, everybody. Beyond the reports that you have, there are just a couple of things I would touch on for everyone. Starting with the renovations, we're going to be very, very close to having everything done by the time we reopen. We have tentatively scheduled reopen for June 1st, day after Memorial Day. Staff are looking forward to it, I know. I think we all are. And we'll still be using safety and hygiene measures as directed by our friends at the Health Department. Russell Meck is going to be helping us with that. I've also had a chance to speak with the facilities director and their custodial supervisor, and we're going to be working on having a member of the facilities custodial staff on site while we're open for the second half of each day, which is new for us, but that'll give us a chance to have additional cleaning, wiping down going on while we've got, theoretically, we expect to have more people in the building. So those are probably the biggest measures that we have going, but I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from board members for Director Illick? All right. I did have just one item that I wanted to make note of. I do see that you included in the report that the library board is going to be doing some additional listening sessions about the potential library system transition. So it's my understanding that our committee shouldn't expect to see that issue returning until sometime later this year. Is that correct in what I'm seeing here?
I can confirm that, yes.
All right, I appreciate you providing the update on that. And I know that I'm sure there's many who appreciate that there's going to be some additional.
Certainly. Thank you.
All right, any other comments related to the library report? Okay, hearing none. I think we are good, but thank you as always for the updates, especially knowing when you're going to be reopening. I have started to see more questions about that, so I appreciate having the insight there, and I'll be able to answer those now.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chair Guild.
Well, then we'll move to item 6A2, the McDevco report. Again, there is the written report that was provided by Vicki. I did receive a message from her this morning that she was unfortunately not going to be able to join us after all, but she did provide a very thorough report for us. I was particularly pleased to see the section on there saying that Marathon County did receive $1.1 million in CDBG funding for the small businesses and housing, and that they will be administered. So I think that's something that I look forward to getting some more details on in the future. Are there any other items from that report that anyone has immediate questions on that we would like to get forwarded to McDevco before our next meeting? All right, hearing none. Of course, as always, if you do, Vicki is always ready and available to talk with any of us about it. So then we'll move quickly into item 6A3, the UW-Madison Division of Extension update. And we have our written monthly report in the packet, and then there is also a specific item for discussion today of the potential modification of UW Extension contract to include office assistants. So I will pass this over to Jason.
Thanks, Chair Guild, and I would ask Administrator Leonard to help me with this discussion about the support position. But I guess if it's okay, I will lead off with the Educator Report and some other highlights that are in there. A couple things that you don't see in the report, which I want to draw your attention to. You should have all the supervisors should have received, and I think administration as well, an email last month as a new email kind of update that we're sending out, and I'm doing this in piloting in Marathon County right now, and it'll be expanding to all the other counties in Area 7 that I work with. Just a monthly update to all supervisors. In that update, you would have seen that there was a link to all the written reports that we submit, just to keep all supervisors informed of the things that we're doing with an extension, and making them aware that we're here to serve them and be a good partner and good steward of their taxpayer dollars and of the county. So that's a kind of an addition to the Educator Report. Also, as Director Illick had mentioned, the opening of the libraries, June 1 starts a new, a reopening phase for extension. We moved to up to 350 people indoors for our events. And I say up to 350, that's the max, but we're still sticking at half capacity of any room size. So following best public health guidance, working with Judy Burrows in public health, and we vetted our plans and our programming checklist that we follow through them. And so that would help us. So even if the room can hold 1,000 people, we're only at 350 and half room capacity, which is a great opportunity for us. Staff are moving forward with summer camps and different outside programming. Outside programming includes fair planning and preparation. So really starting to get that next phase of reopening, and full reintegration of all of our staff. Telecommuting agreements will subside by our organization on July 1. So really kind of staff are coming back to the office, the physical workspace more often than they have. So we're really getting that back to the kind of reorganization and reintegration phase on that. So before we move to that item A, Chair Guild, I would entertain any questions on the educator report.
Okay. Are there any questions from committee members on the educator report? All right, it sounds like you already answered everything there, so thank you. And please, again, thank your staff for taking the time to submit these reports. It is very, very helpful. Yeah,
great. Thank you. So, Chair Gill, I'll go into the second part of that item A about the support staff position. So, as many of you are aware, Nancy Anderson was our administrative support professional for the last 10 years. Spent 17 years with the county, first in public health and then transferring over to our office. She retired April 1st. And so, speaking with Administrator Leonard and options for, filling that position or finding comparables to share across departments or, what that might look like for the county moving forward. There were a lot of options that were thrown out there as a potential LTE or, sharing with another department. And one of the ideas that I ran past Administrator Leonard was the opportunity for extension to, be the lead on that hire and actually run that position through our state contract, the contract that the county currently has with extension. It is something that is being piloted across the state in other areas. And what this does is for our office in particular, it makes our staff on a kind of one level of administration for HR. What do I mean by that? Well, per the extension contract, the reciprocal kind of in-kind contributions is the county has generally hired support professionals to staff the office and to help the educators with administrative tasks. So that was a county position, whereas our educators are state educators or state positions through the extension contract. So inevitably, I'm managing two different systems from an HR perspective. So one performance management piece for the county, one for the state. One HR system for salary and benefits from the county, one from the state. And so my counterparts throughout the state have been piloting this with various other counties and found it to be successful and beneficial for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, one of the things that I mentioned to Administrator Leonard is I know and believe that we'll be able to hire a quality candidate at a base salary of maybe in that 34 to 36 range. And with the salary and benefits through the extension contract, I'm confident that we can save roughly $5,000 or more from what we currently have budgeted. So it would be a cost savings to the county, being good stewards of those dollars, of course, on that position alone. Now, I can say that today. I don't know what the future holds because inevitably, health insurance costs go up and down and different pieces like that. So, but as it stands today, that would save the county money in 2021 and into 2022 through this partnership and agreement. The other benefit of going with the state contract is it does save some other in-kind contributions. So with a county employee, all that onboarding and management is through HR in Marathon County. So that does reduce some of the workload or I'll say burden, but kind of extra things for Marathon County HR. We would take care of that in the extension, the onboarding, all the paperwork, all that stuff, which is one central system. And then the other piece of that is the IT solutions that we provide. So currently through the state of Wisconsin, UW-Madison contracts, all of Office 365, Adobe Suite, Google Apps, all the different softwares like WordPress management for our webpage comes through the state contract. In the past, those are add-ons. Those are fees that were charged to those respective county positions. So if I had to buy Adobe or something else for the previous position, so Nancy's position, I had to work with IT, and that was a charge to our department. So with having a state employee, those are already buried in that contract, and so that wouldn't be roughly. I benchmarked that with our IT department. That's roughly another $1,000 savings potentially. Again, I haven't talked to Jerry Klein about what I haven't looked back at our bill to see what that actual charge was, but there are some other in-kind savings that we can experience by going this route. So after talking with Administrator Leonard, I thought it was important, or we thought it was important to bring it forward to this body for your understanding. I guess, Administrator Leonard, is there anything I missed on that you want to make sure is highlighted for the committee?
No, Jason, you did a fantastic job giving that overview. From my perspective, as the board charges me with running the administrative activities of the Marathon County Government Organization, and Jason laid out some of the kind of positive aspects of moving in this direction from kind of an indirect cost perspective, so the HR oversight, those just underlying administrative tasks that right now are being done by the county with respect to any position that would be created, an administrative position that would be created, those would move through the contract to an obligation of the state. Similarly, like Jason said, at this point, it's not going to cost any additional money. In fact, we believe we can do it Jason and the state can perform it at a lower cost, but certainly it will stabilize that budget for the next couple of years, and essentially it turns over the responsibility for managing those budget increases to the state of Wisconsin. So I think there's a reason to move into that pilot stage, like Jason referenced, similar to some other counties in the state of Wisconsin. From an operational standpoint, how we would affect this, if there's no real concern on the part of this committee, I would bring this to the HR, Finance, and Property Committee. I believe I have the authority to do this as your administrator. You already, through existing ordinance, vested me with the authority to make these sort of administrative decisions relative to positions and whether to hold a position or reclassify a position. And in this case, essentially what we're doing is we're just providing it a different way. We're going to contract for the service rather than be a direct provider. The service is still going to be provided on behalf of the people of Marathon County. It's simply going to be that Marathon County is going to contract with UW Extension. We will amend the existing contract to have UW Extension provide that administrative support service. So just bringing it for your information in the event you hear anything. If you do have any concerns, please let us know. But otherwise, we think this is a good way to move forward to fill that position, to make sure that the extension staff have the necessary administrative support that the county is required to provide. As Jason said, we do have that reciprocal agreement. The county's obligation is to provide that administrative support as well as the office space. So the reason they're in county buildings is because that's required under our contract. This amendment to the contract would simply have that administrative support rolled into it, and UW Extension would provide it. So with that, certainly if anyone has any questions about moving in that direction or concerns, we'd be happy to address them at this point.
All right, thank you both for that update and that information. Do any committee members have any questions or I guess concerns about this proposal that they'd like to bring forward?
Rosenberg here.
Just hit your mic.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
Lance, are there any advantages then in having this being a county employee? Is it changing the character of this?
Sure. I mean, the advantage would be, and Jason and I talked about this, one of my big pushes is always I asked department heads numerous times, anytime a position is open, do you need a full 1.0 FTE? And Jason and I talked about that. I asked that question quite a number of times. Is there any way that extension could perhaps perform all the necessary work with a 0.75 or a 0.5? And, I think Jason did a nice job in the conversations with me talking about really the administrative support ratios that exist within Marathon County. We've historically had more administrative support. A couple of years ago, we decreased administrative support within the extension office. We previously had 2 employees that were county employees. We went down to 1. Jason, we have, is it 8 educators?
Correct. Between the contracted, so yes, there's 8, and that includes our food-wise educators that are not county funded. They're federally funded, but by having the office open there, you get 3 other staff members at no charge, if you will.
So those are again, that's an obligation because we have those food-wise staff here. We do have the obligation to provide that administrative support. And quite honestly, we're about one of the leanest counties, based on my conversations with Jason, leanest in terms of administrative support in the region. So I don't think there's any benefit that we can confer from having the county run this, because the only benefit I would have would be I want to eat up somebody's free time with other work that's on my work plan. And I think this person is already going to be at full capacity with the providing the assistance necessary to Jason and his staff.
How long does this contract last? Is it just indefinite or?
The contract, very good question. The contract is renewed annually. So the committee has provided through the discussions that you've had recently with Jason, you provide some programmatic direction. What are the big areas that Marathon County wants extension to focus on? Those are the reasons for those discussions. Essentially what Jason then does is he takes that information back to his staff and they develop their annual work plans off of that direction. So annually then what I do is I sign a contract for the educators that exist within Marathon County to deliver those services. Those positions and that contract are likewise contained within the budget allocation in your annual budget. So a couple of years ago is really the last time we made a change to the number of educators in Marathon County. We added the broadband position. And then you may recall within the last 18 months, we made a change to the horticulture position. That was a 1.0, so 1 full-time equivalent position. We reduced that to 0.7, and that is now a shared
Correct.
position with, is it Wood County, Jason?
That is correct.
So we make slight modifications to that as necessary, but the contract itself is not indefinite. It's annually updated and signed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Do any other committee members have questions regarding this proposal? All right, hearing none. Obviously, this isn't on for action today, and I think the way that you have both described it makes a lot of sense. So obviously, it needs to now go to the HR and Finance, but I think I would feel confident in saying that our committee has heard it, got our questions answered, and unless anyone wants to speak up and say otherwise, that we generally support the proposal, at least in theory.
Thank you, Chair Gill. This is Administrator Leonard. The next time you'll see that then will be through an amendment to the budget, essentially an interdepartmental transfer. It's not going to increase costs. What you're going to see is essentially funds be moved from a personnel line item to a contractual service line item, because again, we're going to be providing that service in a different way. But thank you very much for your input and your questions.
on the UW-Madison Division of Extension update that you wish to have covered yet today, Jason?
No, Chair Gill, that's all for today. Thank you so much. And as Administrator Leonard had mentioned, thank you for consideration of this. And I think it's going to be, one of the things that I guess I'll close with is many times when board supervisors or others hear that, well, the county's not taking this position, or HR in our respective county or community is not having this and it's going to a state contract, I want you to be assured that we're recruiting in Marathon County. This is all of our efforts will be focused on recruiting somebody from the community, and where we are right now. So please rest assured that that is the focus, that it's still a local person just routed to our state contract.
Great, and thank you. That's a really good point to make sure that we're all on the same page on, and we appreciate that. So, well, okay, that sounds like a smart decision. So thank you both for your efforts into that, and we look forward to seeing where it goes from here. But with that, then, we will move on to item 6A4 and the UW Stevens Point Wausau update. And I do see that Ann Herter-Rapp was able to join us. So we do have a written update provided in the packet. And earlier today, we also had a letter added to the packet. So for those of you that are looking at it, if you didn't look recently, there is some new information. There was a letter we received from UWSP that we are going to just get a little bit of additional information on today. So with that, I will pass it over to Ann, and then Administrator Leonard as necessary as well.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm
Yes.
waiting at the east entrance for the FedEx lady to drive by so I can give her the testing. I'm serious, literally. So if I drop off, her pickup window is 4:30 to 5:30, so I literally have to wait by the doors. So I'll let you know, but if you see me quickly mute and stop my video, you'll know why. So I don't have anything to add to the report that I submitted. That's just the kind of regular updates. If anybody has questions about that, I'd be happy to answer any.
All right. From the committee regarding the written report. It does not appear so, but thank you for putting that together. I was pleased to see some positive information in there. So numbers are looking like they're moving in the right direction, like we like to see.
Yep.
So,
Sarah, I don't know how you want to proceed with the discussion about the dorm. I'm happy to.
well, first, why don't I give a ground from what I'm aware of, and then I will ask that Administrator Leonard and yourself kind of give the additional fill in the blanks of what I've left out, I guess. So to begin, for those of you that didn't have an opportunity to see the letter itself, we received notice from the Chancellor of UW Stevens Point that as of January 1st, 2022, so essentially the end of this year, UWSP is going to be returning the Marathon Hall, so the dorms, back to Marathon County. He did a very nice job of expressing their appreciation, but this past couple of years have kind of demonstrated that the way that they're working is they don't necessarily need the dorms, and as we're all very aware, they are in need of some significant changes if they were to be utilized moving forward. And so UWSP has made the decision to essentially, I don't know if this is the right word, but kind of divest themselves of those at the end of this year. And they will once again become just the property of the county. And they are not, this is not to be seen in any way of them changing their presence here. The UWSP campus remains, and hopefully for a long time. But the dorms themselves just will no longer be a component of it. So that is kind of the short and sweet summary of where things are at. But I will let Ann and Lance kind of build upon that as needed here before we open it up for additional questions from the committee.
Sure. This is Administrator Leonard, and that's a nice overview. Thank you, Chair Guild. I just want to start with one other piece and say, this is not unexpected. We've been,
No, it's not.
This committee has been kind of kept informed of the ongoing conversations we've had with Ann and her staff and staff from UW-Stevens Point, about seeking options to address student housing needs. And we've talked previously about putting out requests for proposals, and we've done that. We've engaged multiple vendors, developers to see if there was interest in rehabilitating that dormitory. But at this point, we haven't been able to secure a developer interested in doing that. And as the letter indicates, UW-Stevens Point, Wausau campus, really throughout the last 2 years or so, as was referenced by Chair Guild, really is now a strong understanding of what are the student housing needs, and quite honestly, the need is not for dormitory-style housing. So that's been communicated to students that it's not an available resource, and it's going to continue to be communicated to students. We've worked to identify those alternatives. Nothing has really developed to this point. So this letter was certainly not unexpected. Quite honestly, I have expected it, and I've had those conversations with Ann and her staff before. So really, the letter was just to signify, put in writing, as Chair Guild referenced, just to memorialize that as of January 1st of 2022, UW-Stevens Point is not going to be operating those buildings as a student housing dormitory. They were always our buildings. They were always Marathon County buildings. We have the obligation to maintain them, but they were operated by UW-Stevens Point. And the reason that's important is because, as is referenced in paragraph 2, you got to heat a building and you have to run utilities to it, and they're just letting us know that unless we have something to do with that building and we want heat and we want to continue to have water within that building, they're going to shut it off. And that makes total sense. So again, none of this is unexpected. They're just letting us know of that change. And the last page in your packet is actually those were my notes that I put together as talking points for myself for the HR, Finance, and Property Committee. So you got to see the inner workings of my mind. That was not intentional, but I think it might be helpful. There are a couple of issues we need to look at, and the relationship with UW-Stevens Point, Wausau campus, formerly UW Marathon County, it's a long-standing one, and there's a lot of agreements and drafts of agreements and updated agreements. And one interesting piece about the dorm. The dorm has, as is referenced in my little notes there, it has been utilized not only as student housing during the year by UW-Stevens Point, Wausau, but it also, for a couple of weeks each year, had been historically used by the 4-H students participating in 4-H at the fair. And that agreement dates back, here's a little bit of history, dates back to a memorandum of understanding that was ultimately signed in July of 1982, which memorialized a unwritten agreement from 1962. And essentially what that agreement was the county board built the dorm with the understanding that it would be able to be utilized for those 4-H students. That was kind of the unmemorialized version from the 1960s. It was ultimately memorialized in 1982, and that memorandum of understanding was incorporated into a lease that was signed in 1991 between Marathon County government and UW Marathon County, the entity. Now, that lease from 1991 existed for 25 years, so that is expired. But the question still remains, what obligation exists, if any, relative to housing for 4-H students during the fair. So one of the things we're going to have to do is just reach out to the Agricultural Society, whose my understanding is their interests are represented by the Fair Board, and really just talk that through. I mean, at the end of the day, the number of students or youth using the housing at the dormitory has decreased dramatically over the last several years. So I don't think that is going to be a significant issue, but we need to interface with them and at least make them aware of this information from UW Stevens Point Wausau. And why that's important is because UW Stevens Point Wausau, under the previous way this worked, they provided some form of staff support relative to the operation of the dorm during that time, and those staff are no longer going to exist. So that's one thing we're going to have to do relatively quickly here, is reach out to the Agricultural Society and have a conversation. The second piece is, as is referenced in the letter, that right now the dormitory has a fair amount of furnishings that UW Stevens Point Wausau is very generously offering to the county for it to take ownership of, should we desire to do so. So we need to make that determination again relatively quickly by July 1st. So those are the two big things from the letter that I think we need to do in short order. But again, just trying to make very clear, this is not unexpected. We had attempted to move forward with a developer agreement after releasing those requests for proposals, but to this point, we simply haven't been able to find an interested developer. So the next step for that dormitory property is really for it to, I envision it being considered as part of the West Side Master Plan. So you may recall that as part of the administrator work plan that was approved by the board in January, planning relative to what is referred to as the West Side Master Plan, which incorporates our properties on West Street, so the Highway Department, the Medical Examiner's Office, Emergency Management, Marathon Park, as well as the property on which all of the UW Stevens Point Wausau campus buildings sit. There was a master planning project ongoing that we would address how to move forward with that, the portion of the property on which the dormitory sits as part of that endeavor. So that's going to continue, but really in short order, we need to have the conversation with the Agricultural Society and then also with UW Stevens Point Wausau representatives relative to the furnishings. So that's all I had, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much, Administrator. That was very, very helpful. I guess I'll ask Ann, is there anything else you want to add before I open it up for questions?
Maybe only that July 1 deadline with regard to the furnishings in the building, that's kind of flexible. We just need enough time if they don't want the room furniture, to move it somewhere else. So it's flexible.
Understood. So soon as possible, but if it's, a week after that deadline, we're okay. But that's also just a month out from the fair, so I would assume that they would want that answered sooner too.
I have been in communication with Jody and with Caitlin about the fair use of the hall, and they will not be using the hall this year for the fair. So it's a moot point for this year.
Okay.
Yep. Chair Gill, can I add some context to that what Ann just shared?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Ann is right. And I think, thanks Ann for bringing that up. So I've been in contact with Caitlin too, and she kind of shared that news to me. The other big piece was the food service piece, the dining. So that went hand in hand with the use of the residence hall there. So those 4-H individuals historically that stayed in the dorms had access to the dining facility on campus. And so 2 years ago, because there wasn't a fair last year, the contract changed, and there was it wasn't it was cost prohibitive for those that were actually staying there to really make it feasible. So that was a big kind of deciding factor to the cost of dining. And again, it's was a great option for many years. But to Administrator Leonard's point, utilization has gone down significantly, and costs are then not as equally distributed. So it's more cost prohibitive for some families. So.
Maybe one other addition, if I could, Chair Guild. We've found that we've been asking students if they are having trouble finding housing, so that we could understand what the need is and if there was a need to further pursue options. And what we're finding is that they have a fair number of other local housing options. They also have the ability to stay in the dorms at the main campus and commute up to this campus. Or to live in Timberwolf Suites. Some of our students live there up at NTC. So what we're hearing actually is not a lot, because we don't encounter many students that are being challenged to find local housing.
Chair Guild, we're having, I don't know if you're speaking, but we're not hearing you.
Oh, okay. Am I back now?
You are back. Thank you.
Okay. I knew it was going to happen at some point. So what part did I cut out at?
The last words that were offered were by Ann, so if you said anything profound,
Okay, so
I would suggest you repeat it.
So all of those wonderful words of wisdom just gone. So essentially, all that I said after Ann and Jason spoke was that first, thank them. And are there any questions that anyone has at this point from the committee?
Yeah, this is Supervisor Vol. I have a question.
Okay, Supervisor Vol.
Yes, and you kind of touched on the question I was going to ask about, the housing in the other parts of the city. I was just kind of curious if that apartment housing over by the MTC has kind of picked up some of that load, and people are kind of migrating that direction. They don't want to stay at these dorms anymore because the other ones are a little newer. If that has any impact on that, can you comment?
I don't know that we had much use by our students before we closed the dorm during the pandemic for this year. But I do know there are at least 2 students that are living up at Timberwolf Suites this year. It could be more, but I'm aware of only 2.
Okay, thanks. Any other comment I would make, Chair Guild, is that I would say that we go ahead and tell the UW that we would be interested in the furniture, and then we could decide when the 4-H group or those people can use it in the future.
Okay. So you're thinking that there might be some use to keeping the furniture?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Does Ed have any sense of kind of what would be involved in if we did keep the furniture and make a decision later, how much, are there any additional expenses or any concerns that we'd want to be aware of with that versus having UWSP take care of it right away? I just want to know what kind of the exchange is, or if it really is, little to lose by us saying, yeah, we'll keep it. And if we don't need it, we'll find a way to get rid of it.
Was that directed to me, Sarah? It kind of cut out in the beginning.
Actually, either one. And it may be a little bit more to Lance, I guess, as far as, that sense of what would be involved in, what would we have to lose by saying, yes, we'll keep the furniture?
Well, my only concern with doing that is the manpower to actually get rid of it and the cost to get rid of it if we ultimately don't need it. My inclination is to reach out to our departments internally first. I don't foresee significant, if any, interest in furnishings from departments. However, I can talk with Ann and we can talk about if the university is willing to, I'll open that up and allow nonprofit agencies in Marathon County to have access to those materials, whether it's through the county or not. I don't want to, it wouldn't be very honest to say, yeah, we'll take all the furnishings and then we'll take them and donate them to other people if UW-Stevens Point actually would have use for them. But I'll work with Ann in the next couple of weeks to figure out what would work for the county and also what would work for UW-Stevens Point. And one thing I certainly can guarantee is that if there's anyone interested in the furnishings and UW-Stevens Point is not interested, we'll do our best to pair them with someone who can put them to good use.
I can say that I don't think the main campus would be interested. The furnishings are rather old. They're also rather specific to a dorm room. Like it's those extra long twin size beds. It's the bed frames that go with them. Each room has 2 dressers, 2 desks, 2 chairs. It's rather specialized for the space. And some of it's not in the best shape at this point either. So I can say that we would not have an interest in retaining the furniture. We would probably try to surplus it through the surplus sales, but I honestly, I can't see that there's a big market to like make any significant money by selling those furnishings.
So it sounds like there's probably an opportunity to have a conversation here and maybe between both sides decide which one is better positioned to rehome these furnishings.
I agree. I think that makes logical sense. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Supervisor Volk, for bringing that up and having that conversation. Are there any other comments from other committee members at this time? All right, hearing it none. Obviously, there's no need for any specific action on this. It's informational. So it sounds like we'll continue to move through the process, rely on our administrative teams to determine, what the best uses and needs are, and then ultimately, since we are getting back, primary ownership, we'll have the West Side Master Plan process help us determine exactly what the best use is for that property in the future. So thank you both very much for the work you put into this. I know that there has been a lot of effort done to try to find a way to repurpose or utilize those dorms in the last couple of years. And so I just want you to know that it was very much appreciated, and it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. So, all right. Anything else from UW-Stevens Point?
Nope, that should do it, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I appreciate your patience and support through this whole process. Change is hard sometimes.
That it is, but we're going to be in a better place at the end, right? So.
Yep.
All right, well then with that, we are moving on to item 7 for next meeting time, location announcements, and future agenda items. Under 7A, do committee members have any items that they wish to bring forward for potential future discussion? All right, hearing none, then our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 3rd at 4 p.m. And if you do have anything that comes up in the interim that you would like us to bring forward, please let me know. Otherwise, I would accept item 8, the motion for adjournment.
So move.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion. Is there a second? And a second. Those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries and we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
I think that's a pretty accurate statement, too.
Unless you got something you want to put into a whole series of identical rooms up and down
On 3 levels.
three levels.
Homeless shelter. And windows that are not in the best of shape, so you better not put anything in there that you want very secure.
Yeah, or humidity control.
Or controlled by temperature. It sounds like the furnishing